In today's video, we're uncovering one of the most disturbing true crime cases in modern German history, a case so grotesque, so psychologically warped, that even seasoned investigators struggled to comprehend what they were dealing with. His name was Wolfgang Schmidt, but across Germany, he became known by far darker titles. They called him the Beast of Beelitz. Others called him the Pink Giant. Those names didn't come from rumors or exaggeration, they came from the horrifying evidence he left behind. Between 1989 and 1991, as Germany stood on the edge of historic collapse and reunification, Schmidt stalked the forests, dumping grounds, quiet rural villages of Brandenburg. While the country focused on political change and a new future, something monstrous was growing in the shadows, driven by urges so disturbing that even hardened criminal profilers would later struggle to categorize them. This was a killer driven by rage alone. This was a crime of passion. This was someone who simply snapped. Schmidt's crimes were methodical, ritualistic, and deeply twisted. As his compulsions escalated, the violence followed, until killing became something he did again and again, sometimes days apart. Before we go any further, take a second to support the channel. If you're interested in deep dive true crime stories told in a documentary style, make sure you like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. While you're here, drop a comment and tell me which country you're watching from. It's always powerful to see how far these stories reach. Now, let's rewind to where this nightmare began. Wolfgang Schmidt was born on October 5, 1966, in the former East German town of Lenin. On the surface, his early life looked unremarkable: quiet countryside, modest living, a typical working-class family. But inside that home, things were far from normal. Schmidt grew up with his mother, father, and younger brother, isolated from town life and surrounded by constant tension, and affection was almost completely absent. Neighbors would later describe the household as cold, emotionally distant, unnourished. His mother was especially cruel. She offered no warmth, no comfort, no sense of safety. Psychologists would later say that this emotional neglect became the breeding ground for something deeply unhealthy, something that began far earlier than anyone realized. At around 7 years old, Schmidt started showing behaviors that were unusual, even alarming. At first, they didn't appear overtly sexual, but they were fixations. He became obsessed with physical sensations, control, secrecy. While alone in his parents' bedroom, Schmidt found a pair of his mother's pants. He would describe feeling an intense sense of pleasure, not guilt, not fear. At the time, he didn't see it as wrong. To him, it felt comforting, grounding, familiar. So he did it again. Over the following weeks, the behavior escalated. Psychologists would later theorize that this fixation was his twisted attempt to connect with his mother, an effort to feel close to someone who showed him nothing but rejection. Eventually, his mother caught him. Instead of concern or intervention, her response was rage and humiliation. She scolded him viciously, mocked him, involved his father, who punished Schmidt physically, often beating him with a belt. But instead of stopping the behavior, the punishment fueled it. Schmidt didn't understand why something that made him feel good, something that gave him a sense of control, was being treated as monstrous. By his early teens, his actions had become far more disturbing. The fixation on clothing evolved into compulsive rituals involving degradation and control. His mother responded by hiding her clothes, locking them away, but by then, it was already too late. Something inside Schmidt had awakened. It was going back to, even with 48 police officers assigned to the case and tip lines flooded with calls, Wolfgang Schmidt remained free. That was the most terrifying part. He had a steady factory job and a familiar circle of friends. To everyone around him, he was quiet, the kind of man no one would ever suspect, and that invisibility became his greatest shield. Police combed the Brandenburg forests, slowly uncovering evidence that confirmed their worst fears. Deep among the trees, investigators found hidden trash bags stuffed with women's clothing, adult magazines, and items clearly used for sexual gratification. These weren't random leftovers. They were ritual sites, places the killer returned to again and again. Criminal profiler Stefan Harberty, one of Germany's most respected forensic psychologists, like this are the most dangerous. When sexual compulsion replaces empathy entirely, escalation is inevitable. The offender is no longer choosing. He is obeying. Knew the police were circling closer, but by now, it didn't matter. The urges had completely taken control. Just 2 weeks after the murder of Tamara Petrovskaya and her infant son, Schmidt was back in the forest. This time, he wore a leather apron over a broad women's knickers, hiding in thick bushes beside a forest road, waiting. Then he saw them. 2 girls, both 12 years old, walking alone. This was a horrifying escalation. For the first time, Schmidt was just reacting. He was planning to kill multiple victims at once. Appearance didn't matter. To him, they weren't people. They were targets. He lunged from the bushes, would later describe a massive figure nearly 2 meters tall, dressed in women's underwear and boots, charging at them without warning. He grabbed one girl and stabbed toward the other. But something went wrong. The girls fought back. One broke free, then the other. Schmidt hesitated. For the first time, he failed. Both girls survived, and that changed everything. Their descriptions were clear, detailed, terrifyingly accurate. Within 24 hours, Composite sketch was released nationwide. Every major newspaper carried his face on the front page. The reward jumped to 6,000 Deutschmarks, a fortune at the time. Veteran journalist Gunther Joch, who covered the case closely, later remarked, "This was the moment Germany realized the killer was a ghost. He was real, and he was hiding in plain sight." You'd think this exposure would force Schmidt into hiding. It didn't. He was already beyond control. The very next day, April 5th, 1991, he struck again in the nearby town of Fichtenwald. Dahlia Bremer, 66 years old. That night, she took sleeping pills and drifted into deep sleep, never knowing someone had entered her home. Moved silently through the house, rummaged through her closet, scattered her clothes across the floor, feeding his obsession. When the urge peaked, he climbed onto her bed and strangled her in her sleep. Nothing was stolen. Nothing was broken. Police immediately knew this was a burglary. This was about control, ritual, and fantasy fulfillment. By now, Brandenburg was paralyzed with fear. Women refused to walk alone. Forest paths stood empty. Entire communities lived on edge, waiting for the next headline. The sketch resembling Schmidt closely, no one reported him. Not co-workers, not neighbors, not even friends. Police arrested several innocent men, each later released. Schmidt vanished again. He stopped killing not because he was cured, but because he was waiting. He blended back in, but the urges never left. They were only dormant. Realizing they were running out of time, police shifted tactics. They began monitoring the hidden fetish sites in the forest, places where clothing and magazines had been buried. Officers waited for weeks. Then, on August 1st, 1991, chance intervened. A local jogger named Mike Kaline noticed a tent deep in the woods, surrounded by women's clothing. He immediately recognized the significance. Instead of confronting it alone, he returned with a friend in the van. Inside the tent, they saw him. A tall man, wearing women's clothes, pink boots, The pink giant. Kayleen stayed calm. He told Schmidt he was from the Forestry Commission and that camping there was illegal. Whether Schmidt believed him or was simply exhausted, he agreed to leave. They drove him straight to the police station. Just like that, the nightmare ended. Schmidt was disturbingly calm. He confessed freely, but showed no remorse. The murders, to him, were not crimes. They were necessities. The only thing that truly upset him was media coverage of his sexual behavior. At trial on October 20th, 1992, the courtroom overflowed. He contradicted his own confession, claimed the victims were willing, denied killing the infant. Psychiatrists diagnosed him with severe personality disorders and declared him criminally insane. When shown his own composite sketch, Schmidt reportedly said, "But it can't be me." He was convicted of 6 murders and sent not to prison but to a psychiatric facility. Over the years, Schmidt transitioned and became Beat Schmidt. Requests for gender reassignment surgery were denied. In 2010, public outrage erupted again when it was revealed she had been granted supervised day release. Criminologist Dallas Schwartzer summarized public sentiment best. Rights must exist, but not at the expense of memory. The victims must never become footnotes. Schmidt later admitted, "I am still dangerous. I should never be freed." Perhaps that's the most chilling truth of all. This case isn't just about violence. It's about what happens when warning signs are ignored, when punishment replaces intervention, and when society underestimates the quiet ones. Stay aware. Trust your instincts. Never dismiss what feels wrong. Thanks for watching.